US President Donald Trump says he's not looking at lowering tariffs on India 1 week after Washington doubled levies on the country's imports to 50% as a punishment for New Delhi's Russian oil imports. Now, Trump asserted that India has, you have to understand, for many years it was a one-sided relationship. Meanwhile, US Congressman Khanna is the latest one to have hit out at Donald Trump, saying Trump's ego is killing India ties. Take a look.
Are you considering taking away some of the tariffs that you've imposed on India?
No, we get along with India very well, but India has, you have to understand, for many years it was a one-sided relationship. Only now, since I came along, and because of the power that we have with tariffs, India was charging us tremendous tariffs, about the highest in the world. They were about the highest in the world, number one. And we therefore weren't doing much business with India, but they were doing business with us because we weren't charging them. Foolishly, we weren't charging them. So they would send in massive, everything they made, they'd send it in, pour it into our country. Therefore, it wouldn't be made here, which is a negative.
30 years of bipartisan work to strengthen the U.S.-India alliance. He has imposed a 50% tariff on India, higher than any other country other than Brazil. It's a higher tariff than the tariff on China. It is hurting India's exports of leather and textiles into the United States, and it's hurting American manufacturers and our exports into India. It is also driving India towards China and towards Russia. Now, why is this happening? For very simple reasons. Prime Minister Modi refused to nominate Donald Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize. Well, Pakistan did. And India has said that the border dispute with Pakistan is an internal matter, refusing to give Donald Trump credit.
Well, that was Khanna, who's just joined a list of many ex-White House officials as well as US politicians in slamming Trump's tariff tirade. Meanwhile, my colleague Kate Fisher gets us more from Ground Zero.
Speaking to reporters in the Oval Office on Tuesday, US President Donald Trump said the US gets on very well with India. But he reiterated his charge against the country over tariffs, saying that for many years it had been a one-sided relationship, saying that New Delhi has imposed, quote, tremendous tariffs on US imports, he said about the highest in the world, while American markets were open to Indian goods. And as an example of what he describes as unfair trade, he used the US motorcycle company Harley-Davidson, saying that the iconic US brand couldn't sell in India because of a 200% tariff on motorcycles. So Harley-Davidson built a plant in India and now it doesn't have to pay tariffs. He said that is the same thing as us. Now, the US tariffs on India came despite months of negotiations, with US trade negotiators saying they were exasperated with India's protectionist policies. Mr. Trump had set a 25% duty on Indian exports, but doubled that to 50% last week as a punishment for the purchase of Russian oil. Now, the US is India's biggest export market, and those levies have hit more than 55% of goods. Mr. Trump has expressed frustration over India's continued purchases of Russian energy, but New Delhi says it is needed to keep its oil prices low. Critics say that such energy purchases by India and China help to keep Russia's economy afloat and undercut sanctions against Moscow, which are aimed at bringing an end to the war in Ukraine. And on Tuesday, President Trump also addressed that war, saying that he was watching very closely to see how Russian President Vladimir Putin handled efforts to set up a meeting with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky, insinuating that he was considering additional measures if talks don't progress. Kate Fisher, NDTV, Washington.